welcome to our seated power Pilates class. My name is Shelly. I'm the physiotherapist here at Parkinson Society BC. And today is week 3 of our seated power Pilates class. If you were here in the previous weeks, you'll probably remember our power Pilates class. We start with a bit of a grounding exercise followed by going over our 5 Pilates rest positions. And even though the name is rest position, you'll know in a moment that it's actually not very restful at all. The point of the rest positions is to have a baseline posture that we maintain throughout the entire Pilates class. And so today we'll be doing similar things and layering on additional movement on top of our 5 Pilates rest positions. So because it is a seated power Pilates class, all you need is a chair to sit in. Ideally, you want a chair that is not going to move. So no computer chairs, nothing with wheels at the bottom. You want to make sure the chair is not going to roll away from you as you're moving today. And ideally, you want a chair without arm rests. The reason for that is because as we're moving today, we want to be able to move our arms in full ranges, and we just don't want to hit our elbows on anything. But of course, if you only have a chair with armrests, that's okay too. Just be a little mindful as we're moving today to just be careful not to hit your arms on anything. You might need to adjust your position a little bit so you have full range of your arms and your legs. Okay, so throughout the class today, if there are any late joiners, I might be coming close to the screen to let folks in from the waiting room. So if you do see me come up to the screen, just ignore me, keep doing your exercise. Okay, let me move back. I'll just make sure my screen is in the large format for everybody here. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to move back to my chair. All right, before we start today, I'm going to turn sideways because I want to show you the position we want to be in when we're sitting in our chair. So even though it's a seated class, we want to make sure we're not sitting all the way back in our chair and we're not leaning into the backrest. Because if we're in this position, our weight is really far back and it's actually pretty hard for us to be able to move because we're so far back and our hips are somewhat restricted. And so when we're doing our class, you want to make sure you're sitting upright, directly over your sit bones, and you want to shuffle yourself forward in the chair. So you want to be forward in the chair so that way you have the room to actually be able to move your legs and hips. Whereas if you're back here, there's actually not a lot you can do with your legs. You're kind of stuck on the chair. So just take a moment and see if you can walk yourself forward in your seat so that you're nice and upright and you're sitting forward in your seat with your feet flat on the floor. And this is the sitting position we want to be in throughout the class today. So at no point do we want to be back here and leaning into the chair. We want to be nice and upright and forward in our chair. Okay, I'm going to turn back to face you. So sitting upright in our chairs, you're going to either put your arms down by your side or you can have them on your hips, whatever is more comfortable for you. And we're going to start with a grounding exercise. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to press the soles of our feet into the ground, almost like we're growing roots from underneath our feet. And the roots are sinking deep into the earth. We're going to spread all 10 toes out on the floor as wide as we can possibly spread them. And then we're going to scrunch up our toes as tightly as we can. And we're going to repeat that. Spreading our toes as wide as we can, almost like we're pressing them down into the floor, like we've got some sand underneath our feet, and we're really spreading out the grains of sand as much as we can. And then we're gonna scrunch up our toes as tightly as we can. One more. Spreading our toes as wide as we can on the floor, almost like we're moving the grains of sand underneath us. And then we're going to scrunch up the toes as tightly as we can. And then we're going to just lay our feet flat on the floor. From here, we're going to draw our focus to the bottom of our pelvis. We're sitting in our chairs, and with every breath out that we do, we want to think about sinking our pelvis deeper into our seat. With every breath out, our pelvis gets heavier, sinking deeper into our seats. And we're going to begin weight shifting and pressing, rolling the bottom of our pelvis on our seats. So we're weight shifting forward and back on the bottom of our pelvis. We're pressing, almost like we're pressing an imprint of the bottom of our pelvis into the seat. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. We're really rolling the bottom of our pelvis on our seat, forward and back. We're pressing our weight forward on our sitting bones and then back on our sitting bones. And as we're doing this movement, we're trying to maintain our spine in the same length if possible. So it's almost like if I took a measuring tape and I measured how long your spine is, we want that measurement to stay the same. So we don't want to be like this as we're rolling. We want the length of our spine to stay the same as we're rocking and pressing the bottom of our sitting bone into the seat. Nicely done. It's almost like if you got a light coming out of the top of your head, it's drawing a straight line across the ceiling. We're not like this, but our entire body is moving together in peace. Nicely done. And as we continue this movement, we're going to try and see if we can do the same thing, but now going sideways. So we're rocking, we're weight shifting side to side. We're pressing weight into the left side of our sitting bones, and then we're pressing weight into the right side of our sitting bone. And as we're doing this weight shift, we're still maintaining that tall spine, that long length of the spine. So it's as if I brought a measuring tape out again, and I measure the length of your spine, and that length is going to stay the same as we're doing this weight shift movement. Pressing your sitting bones down into the chair. Nicely done. And then we're going to take this one step further. You're going to see if you can draw a circle now. So you're weight shifting over your sit bones in a circular pattern, almost like you've got a light coming out of the crown of your head and it's pointing at the ceiling, and you're drawing a circle in the ceiling with that light. The entire body is moving in one piece, and you're really pressing on the bottom of your sit bones in that circular pattern. So it's almost like if your seat is made out of wet cement, there should be a circle that you're kind of carving into the seat. Nicely done. Try to keep both feet on the floor if you can. Imagine equal weight into all 10 toes and into both heels. We're not lifting the feet at any point. We're staying grounded in the earth. Nicely done. Let's try the other direction for the circle. See if you can now press your sit bones in the other direction. You're still thinking about your seat made out of wet cement, and it's almost like you're carving a circle on the seat with the bottom of your pelvis. Equal weight in all 10 toes and in both heels on the floor. Long spine, like you're drawing a circle with the light coming out of the crown of your head. Nicely done. We're going to take this one step further, and you're going to see if you can write your name in your seat. See if you can write your name first and last by weight shifting, pressing your sitting bones into the wet cement that's your seat. Nicely done. And while you're doing this, you're still maintaining that long spine. We're writing our name first and last while maintaining the length of the spine. We'll do this twice, your first and last name twice. As big as you can with your weight shift. Equal weight, pressing into all 10 toes and into both heels as you're doing this. Nicely done. And when you finish, we're just going to come to some stillness in the middle of our seat. And now we're going to go into our 5 Pilates rest position. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the name is the rest position, but ironically, it's actually not very restful at all. But the idea is we're maintaining all 5 of these postural positions throughout our entire Pilates class. So as we start adding in arms and legs and different types of movement, we want to maintain the underlying 5 Pilates positions at all times. So I've turned sideways so you can see me. We're going to place our hands onto our hips, and I want you to imagine the pelvis as like a bucket. So imagine the rim of the bucket is here, and the rest of the bucket is below. We fill this bucket all the way to the top with water, and we're going to use our pelvis movement to tip water out of the front of the bucket, and then to tip water out of the back of the bucket. You see, I move my arm. I'm tipping water over the front of the bucket and then tipping to the back of the bucket. So I'm rocking, I'm tipping, pelvic tilting in this position here. I'm tipping that imaginary bucket forward to let water spill out the front, and then I'm tipping that imaginary bucket back to spill water out of the back of the bucket. And I'm going to keep playing around with this movement, trying to go as far as I can in each direction. And then with each rocking motion, I'm going to make this movement smaller and smaller and smaller until I find some stillness where the water is sitting smack in the middle of the bucket. The rim is perfectly level, so I'm not tipping further forward and I'm not tipping further backward. I'm sitting right in the middle. The water is perfectly still in the middle of the bucket. This is what we call our neutral pelvis in Pilates. This is position number 1. At all times during our class, we're going to maintain the stationary neutral position. We're not going to let the water in the bucket move at all throughout the class. The second position we're going to go over is going to be our ribs. I want you to imagine you've got a little seatbelt at the front of your ribs, and we're clipping the seatbelt in such that our ribs are pressing back towards our spine. And as we're doing that, we're going to maintain our neutral pelvis. So we're not going to now go like this and tip our bucket backwards just because we've now sucked in our ribs towards our spine. So we're maintaining our neutral pelvis, tucking the ribs into our spine as if we've got a little seatbelt at the front that we're clipping. And then we're going to think about our shoulder blades. We're squeezing the shoulder blades back and pressing them down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. And as we're doing that, we're keeping the ribs tucked in, not flaring out, keeping the ribs buckled in, and we're going to maintain our neutral pelvis. And then we're going to think about the back of our neck lengthening towards the ceiling, almost like we're tucking a little peach underneath our chin. So we're making a slight double chin, lengthening the back of the neck. And then we're going to pull up through our pelvic floor as if we just sat in some really cold water and we went We're pulling up slightly through the bottom of our pelvis. So all 5 of these positions make up our Pilates 5 rest position. And throughout the class, we're maintaining all 5 positions at the same time. So we're maintaining our neutral pelvis, thinking about that bucket analogy. The water is not tipping in the bucket. The water is completely still. The ribs are tucked into our spine, shoulder blades squeezing back and sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants, long back of the neck, little peach under the chin, and pulling up through our pelvic floor. And as we maintain all 5 of these Pilates rest positions, we're going to let our arms hang down and go into our Pilates walking. So we're lifting one heel up at a time, as if we're pedaling through our feet. And as we do this position, we're maintaining all 5 of those Pilates rest elements we just talked about. So as we're pedaling through our feet, we're maintaining that neutral pelvis. The bucket is not moving. The water in our bucket is completely stationary. Our ribs are buckled in and tucked into our spine. Shoulder blades are squeezing back together and sliding down our backs as if we're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck, little peach under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Breathing as we're pedaling through our feet, maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. And then when we're ready, we're going to add our toy soldier arms. Opposite arm to leg. And as we add in this layer of arms, we're still maintaining our 5 Pilates rest positions. Our neutral pelvis staying still, the bucket that we imagined as our pelvis not moving at all, not tipping, not a single drop of water in our bucket is moving. Ribs are still tucked in together towards the spine. Shoulder blades squeezing back together, sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck with a little peach tuck under our chin, pulling up through our pelvic floor. Keep going. I'm just letting somebody in from the waiting room. Keep going. Breathing. Maintain all 5 Pilates rest positions. Completely stationary. Our bucket of water, that's our pelvis, not moving. Ribs still tucked in, not flaring out. Shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck. Imagine a little peach under your chin and pulling up through your pelvic floor. We're adding on. Keep the feet pedaling. We're now going to change our variation of our arms. We're going to go forward, overhead, to the side, back down. And as we're moving through our variation of the arms here, our port de bras variation, we're going to maintain all 5 Pilates rest positions. Neutral pelvis, not moving. You're thinking about that bucket of water, that's your pelvis. Every single drop of water staying completely still in that bucket. Ribs not flaring out, they're tucked in towards our spine. Shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck, tucked in, almost like you've got a little peach underneath your chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Nicely done. Long necks. Little peach under your chin, shoulder blades sliding down your back, tucking into the opposite back pocket of your pants. Neutral pelvis. One more. Shoulder blades sliding down our backs, long necks. Ribs tucked in. Switching our arms now to our dumb waiter. Opening to the side, palms down, reaching away. Pulling the elbows in. And back down. As we're moving our arms through this variation, same as before, we're maintaining the neutral pelvis, that bucket of water, staying exactly the same, not moving, not a single drop moving. Ribs tucked into our spine, shoulder blades sliding down our backs, long necks. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions at the same time, still pedaling through our feet. Nicely done. Reaching the arms away, splitting those fingers nice and wide. Last one. Nicely done, everybody. Long necks, ribs tucked in, no flaring ribs. Little peach tucked under the chin still. And drop the legs. You're going to float the arms up to a T shape. Just check in with your posture. Are we still maintaining all 5 of Pilates rest position? Remember our pelvis, we're not rocking. We're keeping that bucket of water, that's our pelvis completely stationary. Ribs tucked into our spine, shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back to the neck like you've got a little peach tuck under your chin, pulling up through your pelvic floor. We're going to lengthen our leg away and back towards us. We're sliding, we're brushing our foot along the floor. It's like if we've got paint underneath our foot, we're drawing a line on the floor, brushing the foot away. Lengthening, brushing and lengthening the foot away from you, as if someone's grabbing your toes and pulling them away from you. Keep on brushing, lengthening the leg away. Keep going. I'm going to turn sideways. Lengthen the leg away. And noticing as I'm doing my tongue do's, as I'm brushing my legs, I'm keeping my neutral pelvis. So that bucket of water, that's our pelvis, is not moving. We're maintaining that completely stationary. Ribs still tucked into our spine, shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck, a little peach under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. See how nothing else is moving as I'm brushing and lengthening my legs away from me. Nicely done. We're going to take this one step further. When we're lengthening the leg away, we're going to pull the leg even further such that it floats off the floor and comes back down. We're brushing, lengthening away, and bring it back down. Slight hover off the floor, lengthening that leg away. And as we're doing this off the floor hover, we're still maintaining all 5 Pilates rest position. Shoulder blades still sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck, ribs tucked in, not flaring, tucked in ribs. And we're keeping our neutral pelvis. Think about that bucket, that's our pelvis. Water in the bucket, not moving at all, pulling up through our pelvic floor. Keep going. I'm just letting somebody in from the waiting room. Keep going. Breathing, maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. Nothing else is moving other than the leg. Nicely done. We're going to pulse here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sliding that leg back down. Other side. Reaching that leg away. Pulsing for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as we pulse the legs, we want to make sure we're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. Shoulder blades are still sliding down our backs, long necks, ribs tucked in, not flaring out as we do our pulse. We're thinking about our neutral pelvis, like we've got a bucket as our pelvis, and the water inside the bucket is not moving at all, and we're still pulling up through our pelvic floors. On the next lift of our leg, we're going to keep that leg stationary, but we're going to pulse the arms with the palms down. We're going to pulse for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower the legs, keep the elbows up nice and high. We're tapping our shoulders. And as we do this, I just want to remind you, when we are doing our pulsing, we're still maintaining all 5 of our Pilates rest positions. Keep the elbows up. Don't let them sink down here. Elbows up. So while we're doing our pulsing, we're still maintaining our 5 Pilates rest positions. Long back of the neck, shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Ribs still buckled in together and tucked into the spine, not flaring out. Our pelvis is maintaining neutral. Imagine your pelvis as a bucket of water. Not a single drop of water is moving, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Other leg lifting up, hovering. We're going to pulse for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And rest. Shake out those arms. Shake out those legs. So remember, we're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions at all times throughout the class, and that's the real challenge. So even though the movements are called rest positions, you can see that they're actually not very restful at all. It's pretty difficult to maintain all 5 at the same time as we're layering on different movements. So we're going to take a moment to refine our 5 Pilates rest positions again. So we're going to place our hands onto our hips, and you're going to imagine your pelvis is like a bucket of water. So the rim of the bucket is here, and the rest of the bucket is sort of going towards the floor. And we're imagining that we filled the bucket all the way to the top with water. And we're going to use the movement of our pelvis to tip the bucket forward such that water spills out the front of the bucket. And then we're going to tip the bucket backwards such that water spills out the back of the bucket. And we're going to keep oscillating in this movement, tipping the water out of the front of the bucket and the back of the bucket. And you're going to see how far you can go in each direction. How far can you tip your pelvis such that as much water comes out the front of the bucket as possible, and then as much of the water comes out the back of the bucket as possible. So kind of pelvic tilting in this position. Nicely done. And then with each tip that you're doing, you're going to make the movement smaller and smaller and smaller until you come to some stillness, where your bucket rim is perfectly level. It's not tipping further forward, and it's not tipping further backwards, but it's completely horizontal, completely stationary, and not a single drop of water is moving in the bucket. While maintaining that, we're going to move on to our rib positioning. We're going to imagine this little seatbelt at the front of our ribs, and we're buckling the ribs in such that the ribs are pressing back into our spine. But as we maintain this rib movement going into our spine, we're still going to keep our neutral pelvis. We're not going to tip the bucket just because we've now added on the rib movement. So we're keeping our ribs tucked in, not flaring out. And we're maintaining our neutral pelvis. And then we're going to think about our shoulder blades, squeezing back and sliding down our backs as if we're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of our pants. And then we're going to lengthen the back of our necks as if we're holding a little peach under our chin. And all the while, we're maintaining the shoulder blade position, sliding down into the opposite back pocket of our pants, our ribs tucked into our spine, neutral pelvis, not a single drop of water in the bucket is moving. And then we're going to pull up through the bottom of our pelvic floor. almost like we just sat in some really cold water and we went, we're pulling up a bit through the bottom. All 5 of these positions together make up our 5 Pilates rest positions. We're maintaining all 5 rest positions at all times during our Pilates class. From here, we're going to drop our arms down by our side and we're going to float them up into a T shape, all the while maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. And we're going to walk our feet out nice and wide, ideally wider than your chair. Toes are going to point out slightly on a diagonal. From here, we're going to brush the leg away from us, almost like we're drawing a line on the floor. Then we're going to brush that leg towards us again. Same thing with the other side. Brushing that leg away from us on a diagonal, like we're drawing a line on the floor, and then brushing in towards us. As we're doing this movement, we're going to maintain all 5 Pilates rest positions. Think about that bucket of water, that's your pelvis. The bucket is not tipping at all, completely stationary. Our ribs are buckled in together and they're pulling back into our spine. Shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck, like we've got our little peach under our chin, pulling up through our pelvic floor. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions as we draw this diagonal line on the floor. Nicely done, everybody. Adding on a challenge. If you like, this is optional. You can brush that leg even further away such that it hovers off the floor and then it comes back down. If you are adding in the hover off the floor, we're still maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. The bucket of water, that's our pelvis, not moving, completely stationary. Ribs are still buckled in together, not flaring out. Shoulder blades still squeezing together and sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck, little peach tuck under the chin, pulling up through our pelvic floor. Breathing as we slide that leg away. Nicely done. Whether you're doing on the floor version or off the floor version, we're going to keep the legs moving and drop the arms down. We're going to add in a variation of our arms. Arms go forwards, to the side, overhead, back down. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions as we do this. Pelvis is not moving. Ribs are not flaring out. Ribs are tucked into our spine. Shoulder blades sliding down our backs as if we're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of our pants. And then we're thinking about long backs of the neck as well. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions as we do our variation of our arms. Nicely done. It's almost like your body is a statue. Nothing else is moving other than your forelegs. Torso completely stationary. Nicely done. One more. Neutral pelvis. Don't let that bucket of water, that's your pelvis, move. Ribs tucked in. Don't let your ribs flare. Shoulder blades pressing in together, sliding down your backs as if you're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of your pants. Long back of the neck. Float the arms up to a T shape. We're going to pulse the leg for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Other side. As we're pulsing for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. Think about that bucket of water, that's your pelvis. Not a single drop is moving. Ribs not flaring. They're still buckled in together, tucked into your spine. Shoulder blades sliding down your backs as if you're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of your pants. Long back of the neck, little peach tuck under the chin. And you're pulling up through the bottom of your pelvic floor like you just sat in some really cold water and you went, and you're pulling up. Nicely done. Little pulses. Last two for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop the arms, drop the legs, shake out your arms. You can move your body back and forth a few times just to kind of shake that out. And then we're going to refine our 5 Pilates rest positions again. You turn in sideways. For those who have joined late, we'll go over the 5 Pilates rest position again. We're sitting at the very front of our seat. Nobody should be leaning back into the backrest of the chair. You're going to place your hands onto your hips. You're going to imagine your pelvis is a bucket of water. So the rim of the bucket is here, and the rest of the bucket is kind of sitting on the floor. And you're going to move your pelvis such that you're tipping the bucket forward to let as much water fall out the front of the bucket as possible. And then you're going to tip your pelvis back such that as much of that water falls out the back of the bucket as possible. And then you're going to keep oscillating through this tipping movement of the bucket, trying to go as far as you can in each direction, such that as much water spills out the front and the back of the bucket as possible. And then with each movement, you're going to make it slightly smaller and smaller until you come to some stillness, where the rim of the bucket is perfectly still, perfectly horizontal, perfectly level, and the water inside the bucket is sitting perfectly still in the middle of the bucket. So the water is not more forward in the bucket and it's not more backwards in the bucket. It's completely level, smack in the middle of the bucket. That's your neutral pelvis. We're maintaining that position at all times throughout our Pilates class. The second movement we're going to think about is our ribs. Imagine there's a little buckle at the front of your ribs and you're clipping that belt in. So you're tucking those ribs into your spine. But as you're doing that, you're maintaining that neutral pelvis. That bucket is not moving as you're tucking the ribs in. And then you're going to think about your shoulder blades squeezing together, sliding down your backs as if you're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of your pants, long back of the neck, like you've got a little peach tucked under your chin, and you're pulling up through your pelvic floor. And all 5 of those positions together make up your 5 Pilates rest position. You're maintaining that at all times. All 5 positions maintained. We're going to float the arms up to a T shape again, maintaining your neutral bucket pelvis, keeping your ribs tucked into your spine, shoulder blades sliding down your backs into the opposite back pocket of your pants, long backs of the neck, pulling up through the pelvic floor, and we're going to walk out, in, other side, out, in. And as you're walking your legs out and in, you're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. That bucket, that's your pelvis, not moving at all. Not a single drop of water is moving. Ribs tucked into your spine, shoulder blades sliding down your backs, and as if you're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of your pants, long backs of the neck, like you've got a little peach under your chin, pulling up through your pelvic floor. Nicely done. Arms on your hips. Same thing, maintaining your neutral pelvis as we're stepping the legs out and in. Ribs not flaring out, tucked in together towards your spine. Shoulder blades sliding down your backs as if you're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of your pants. Long backs of the neck, little peach tucked under your chin, pulling up through your pelvic floor. 2 more. Nicely done. We're going to end with our legs nice and wide. Float the arms up again. Maintain all 5 Pilates rest positions. And we're going to go into our mermaid stretch. Everything above the ribs are going to pull up towards the ceiling and over to the side and back to the center. Everything below the ribs not moving. So I'm not curving like this. Everything below the ribs, everything below here, not moving. So it's my upper body that's tipping sideways. Upper body, nicely done. Upper body. Make sure you have equal weight and all 10 toes on the floor, equal weight, and both heels on the floor. Upper body only. Nicely done. Upper body only. Two more. Upper body only. Nicely done. Last one. And we're going to walk the feet in. Keep your 5 Pilates rest positions. Lower the arm. Neutral pelvis. Ribs still tucked into your spine. Shoulder blades still sliding down into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck. We're going to float the arms up behind our ears. Shrug the shoulders up. Drop them back down. Reach up overhead. Shrug the shoulders. Drop them back down. And lower the arms. Make sure the ribs are not flaring as you're doing this corkscrew pattern. Shoulders up, drop them down. Arms up overhead, shoulders up, drop them back down. Neutral pelvis, think about that bucket of water, that's your pelvis. Maintaining the same position, ribs tucked into your spine, shoulder blades are sliding down your back. Long back of the neck, little peach under the chin. Nicely done. Up overhead. Shrug, drop, lower all the way down. If you're doing this movement, ribs are not flaring out. Keep those ribs tucked into your spine. Long necks. One more. Nicely done, everyone. Ribs tucked in. Long necks. And we're going to slide one leg out, heel on the floor. Long spine, hinge forward at the hips. Walk your hands down that leg to stretch the back of the thigh. I'm turning sideways. The longer you keep your spine and the more you hinge from your hips, the more you'll feel a stretch at the back of the thigh. Breathing. Walking your hands back up your leg. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Slide that heel away from you. Lengthen your spine towards the ceiling. Hinge forward at the hips. Walk the hands down your legs as far as you can. Breathing. Long spine. Walking the hands back up. We're going to separate those legs nice and wide. Put your hands on the inside of your knee, and you're going to press the legs out, almost like you're pressing the legs back towards the back wall. Lengthen the spine up towards the ceiling. Hinge forward at the hips again. Long spine. Feel a stretch on the inside of your thigh. From the side, it looks like this. Long spine. Hinging forward at the hips. Not curving. Long spine. Lengthen your spine up in a diagonal position. Breathing, pressing the legs back if you can. Breathing as you're doing this. And we're going to come back up to the middle. Bring your legs back together. And this time, we're going to walk our legs over into a diagonal. So our knees are pointing on a diagonal. That front leg, we're going to step back as far as we can. Bring that leg back as far as you can, such that the kneecap is pointing down towards the floor, and you're going to lean back into the chair like you're trying to straighten the front of that hip. You can hold onto your chair for some balance. You should feel a stretch in the front of the hip and the front of the thigh. The further back you move that leg, and the more the knee points down at the floor, the more you feel the stretch. Breathing. Nicely done, everyone. And coming back up, walk the legs to the other side. Front leg sliding back such that the kneecap is pointing down at the floor. You're going to lean back into your seat. Really push that hip forward such that the front of the hip and the thigh is almost like a straight line. And you should feel a stretch at the front of the leg and the thigh. Breathing. Nicely done, everyone. Coming back up. We're going to find our neutral again. We're sitting up nice and tall in our seats. Nice and tall in our seats. You can either have the arms drop down by your side, or you can place them onto your hips, whatever is easier for you. And you're going to imagine your seat is like wet cement. And you're going to draw a straight line forward and back on your seat using the bottom of your sitting bone, using the bottom of your pelvis. So your body's kind of like a boat. You're rocking back and then rocking forward. The entire body is moving together. This movement is not the same as the pelvic tilting we did earlier in our 5 Pilates rest position. So our 5 Pilates rest position was like this, where only the pelvis is moving. So now our entire body is moving. So almost like you've got a light coming out the top of your head, and you're drawing a line of light on the ceiling. So the entire body is moving like a statue. You're imprinting the bottom of your pelvis onto the seat as if the seat is made out of wet cement, and you're drawing a line forward and back. Nicely done. And then when you're ready, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to face you again. We're going sideways. So the entire body is weight shifting sideways. You're pressing the bottom of your pelvis into the seat, going right and left and right again. Whole body moving. And while you're doing this, we're not lifting our feet off the floor. We're going to maintain equal pressure in all 10 toes on the floor and both heels on the floor. You should have equal pressure under both feet at all times. Lengthen your spine as you're doing this. Nicely done. And then we're going to try a circle. See if you can draw a circle using the bottom of your pelvis on that seat. Just lengthening through the spine. So we're not doing this with our backs. We're lengthening through the spine, the entire body moving in one piece. And you're still maintaining equal weight in both your feet. So equal weight in all 10 toes on the floor and both heels on the floor. Equal weight in both of your feet. Imagine that light at the crown of your head. You're drawing a circle on the ceiling with that light. Nicely done. And we'll try the same thing in the other direction. See if you can draw a circle in the other direction. Really pressing your sitting bones down into the chair in that circular pattern. Crown of the head, drawing a circle on the ceiling. Equal weight in all 10 toes in both heels. Nicely done. And then when you're ready, our last variation, you're going to write your first and last name with your pelvis pressing down into the seat. You're writing your first and last name using the bottom of your pelvis and the crowns of your head on the ceiling. Equal weight in all 10 toes and both heels. Writing as big as you can, as exaggerated as you can. We're going to do that 3 times. Don't let your feet lift off the floor. Thinking about equal weight in both feet, in all 10 toes, equal weight in both heels. Lengthen through the spine, crown of the head, reaching up towards the ceiling as you're doing this. Nicely done. And when you're finished writing your first and last name 3 times, you're going to find some stillness in the middle of your seat. You're going to spread all 10 toes on the floor as wide as you can, as if you've got sand under your toes and you're really spreading each grain of sand under your feet. And then you're going to scrunch all 10 toes up again as tightly as you can. Again, pressing, spreading all 10 toes out on the floor like you're moving sand away from you. And I'm pulling up all 10 toes again, scrunching up all 10 toes as much as you can. Last one, spreading all 10 toes out on the floor as wide as you can. And then scrunching up all 10 toes as tightly as you can. And then let your feet relax into neutral. Deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Again, breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Last one, breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Drop the arms down, rotate the palms forward and backwards. Nice and heavy in the arms, almost like you've got little weights attached to the ends of your wrists. And come to some stillness again. Thank you everyone for joining us for week 3 of our seated power Pilates class. I hope you enjoyed that class. And as you can see, what I was mentioning at the beginning of the class is that the Power Pilates class, it's very much focused on our posture and maintaining our postural positions throughout the class. So as we're moving with our arms and legs, we're maintaining the underlying tongue control, the underlying postural control muscles. And so Pilates is a really good thing to do if there's someone who wants to improve on your posture or work on those postural control muscles. And as you can see, even though the movements look quite simple themselves, it's actually very difficult when you're doing them. And it probably doesn't look like you're moving very much, but it takes so much effort and so much energy to really maintain all 5 of those Pilates rest positions. So well done for getting through it. And I will see you here for our final class next week, same time, same place. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend. Thank you everyone for joining me. I will see you next week.